I think AI has reshaped the industry. Solve locally and go globally.
A small sliver is happening on the go. It's a lot more complicated with an expectation of making it a lot simpler.
This might just be the best panel because I am together with women leaders in mobility.
This one is special because it keeps with the topic of what's next in mobility. This panel will be moderated by Jose Jacob Kalail, who is a visionary leader himself and an entrepreneur dedicated to fostering sustainability and innovation in international trade and urban development.
Latha, Ujjwala and Kasturi, please come on stage and join me together. We are a bit confused because of the orientation of the stage, but always good to have a new mental model to translate that mental model and to see how you can use your situation and opportunity more effectively. I'll try my best to look at all of you all around and keep an eye on the camera team here as well. Well, we are here today for a very, very interesting session. And you see, this might just be the best panel because I am together with women leaders in mobility. So, let's give a big round of applause to the wonderful leaders in mobility with us. We are a little bit catching up to do in terms of time, so I will be zipping past without doing long introduction for each of them. All of you are very smart people. Probably you have AI assistants on your phone. All you need to do is put the name of our co-panelists on your AI assistant search engine, and you will find out a lot of them, even things that they don't want you to know, you might find out, right? So I don't do that introduction thing. Let's straight away jump into the panel. My first question will be to Latha, who is a great veteran of the industry with many years in experience across different companies. I just want her to highlight a little bit about her background and her journey so that the audience can appreciate what she has been through, what she has done, to then unpack in the next round of questioning where she thinks the next for mobility lies. So without much ado, Latha, please share with us your background story, some of the key things you did in the main pit stops in your experience, and then just a few lines about how do you think mobility has shaped up over the years of your experience. Over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for having me here. So, yeah, veteran is the right word, probably. Yeah, 30 years in the industry now. Started with Siemens Automotive in 1995 in Germany. Then 9 years there, then moved on to Bosch, 17 long years in Bosch, leading powertrain and electrification. And then I was heading Continental Automotive in India for the last 4 years, and currently an entrepreneur for the last 2 weeks. That's how my story is now. So if you look at the mobility industry, how it has evolved, I would say the last decade probably has seen more changes than the last century itself in terms of the technology disruption, in terms of the business models that we have seen, and how the customers are evolved. And especially if you look at India market, I was just talking to Ujjwala and telling that the kind of, the technology changes that's happening in India. And for example, even if you look at something like ADAS, we are a push market, and still how the public embraced this kind of technology, I think it is really amazing. Obviously, if you look at electrification, it is a little bit slower than what we projected. But there are a lot of innovations which are happening, across. So I started with electrification topic in 2015. I think Bosch was one of the first companies who started with electrification, set up a world-class infrastructure in India. That point of time, I think sustainability is a topic which has always close to my heart, and the second thing is safety. So I think somehow I'm in the right industry because both can happen in parallel, right? So electrification, there were a lot of challenges when it started off, especially starting with the range anxiety, which is currently solved, and there are a lot of new technologies which are coming in, whether it is in terms of the new material technologies which are coming in, the solid-state devices. A lot of things have happened, and I think we are in a good way, poised to move forward. The second topic, which I had worked on extensively, is the ADAS part. And if you ask me, whether everybody asks, normally in a conference, when do you think L5 will come? don't have the crystal ball in my hand, so I can't tell when it will come. But in terms of how the technology has evolved and how low-cost sensors have come into the market, I think we have brought in a lot of change, whether it is cameras, lidars, radars, ultrasound sensors, and the different kind of technologies which came in, especially with AI coming in, AI in the product, whether it is driver recognition, driver monitoring, driver assistance, and whether AI out of the product, which is in terms of design of automotive, manufacturing, predictive diagnostics, end to end, I think AI has reshaped the industry. So when you look at that, I think what also happens is data. Data is currency of the future, but data is the key in making everything happen in automotive at this point of time. I'm sure Ujjwala will talk about it later. And so the way that the data science has evolved, the AI has evolved, the modeling has evolved, is really amazing. And how the automotive industry, which is supposed to be a conservative industry, has embraced these technologies is really good, because the car which was earlier taking us from a point A to point B has become an IoT on wheels, permanently connected to the internet, which is great, but also brings in its own challenges like cybersecurity. So that's also another area. Functional safety, cybersecurity is also an area which evolved over a period of time. But it's again a moving target. The hackers are getting smarter than all of us. So it's a moving target. We are all learning. So that's again one part of the industry. The other part, which we worked very closely with, was connected vehicles. And in the connected vehicles, a lot with the software-defined vehicle itself. And I'm sure that if I ask anybody in this room, how do you define software-defined vehicles, I'm sure that we get 100 different answers. Because for everybody, it seems to be a little bit different. Somebody tells it is software-enabled, somebody tells it's just OTA. So I think, but what I would say is that it is kind of restructuring the entire industry, the way we think, starting from design to architecture to production to everything. I think it has changed. And we always thought that the value of a car always decreased once it leaves a factory, but I think now it is a possibility that value of car can, I don't know whether it will really increase, but at least it can remain constant and not decreasing over a period of time, because we are able to add a lot of new features, a lot of, see, when you look at the entire industry, it is basically, I would say, it is 4 things which is driving the industry now. One is safety, super critical, paramount. Second thing is joy of use. The third is ease of use. And the fourth one is sustainability. And if you look at all these 4 areas, somehow software-defined vehicles can influence it in a big way. And I'm sure that the other thing which I really like is that, the monopoly of certain companies have also gone because of the software-defined vehicles, because now we are talking in the mobility industry, an era which is co-creation through collaboration. So everybody has something to do to bring a product into the market. It is the OEMs, the tier 1s, the tier 2s, the tech companies, the government organizations, startups. Everybody has something to do to contribute. And it is becoming a much more level playing field rather than only an OEM and a tier 1 play. And which is good, because it's bringing out a lot of new perspectives, a lot of new technologies, a lot of new business models which are evolving, which was not in the past. Probably China is very much ahead of that. But still, India is catching up. And if you look at the different startups, what we have, whether it is startup exclusively for mobility or even startups which are looking at data and AI and other things, they have a lot to contribute in this space. Yeah. So in a breath, I think a lot is happening.
Yes.
So I cannot condense 30 years in a few minutes.
Perfect.
But I think...
Thank you so much. I think, to the attentive audience, if you have held on to that thread of how, starting with electrification, autonomous vehicle, connected vehicle as an experience, and so on. It's always good to be at a panel which is about the future or what is next. If you would see any of the business news channel, they interview these guys who tell us that 20 years ago we bought some shares in this company made our wealth 1,000 times, some of them 10,000 times. You might be saying that story 20 years from now, right? If you have picked the right thread. Just to give you, starting from Latha's thread, because she covered the tech angle and the journey of tech in mobility over the decades. the last part that she left, because I also run a summit which is called the India Advantage Summit. We try to help startups raise money. In fact, Aether, who will get awarded before their first round of funding, was at our summit. So we are good at picking the right guys before time. That's the key word, before time. When she said this thing about software in a vehicle as a software, you know, if you look at vehicle delivering experience, and if you imagine that somebody would pay $1 per month for having a custom experience. So when you go into your car, it recognizes you, plays the music you like, knows where's your house, does X, Y, Z, I don't know, till whatever alphabet. And if you are ready to pay $1 a month for that service, and imagine if there are 100 million users that this guy can get, and they are all paying him 1 million. So it's $100 million of revenue. And what is the cost or fractional cost as this company would scale? Almost nothing, because it's edge AI, it's cloud. Now, do you think there is a startup doing something there? The answer is yes. You can meet Jan at coffee or lunch and find out which that company is, track them. If they get listed, buy their stocks early, right? That's the advantage of being at a summit that discuss what is next, right? Thank you, Latha. You know, you gave us that segue. You know, the tech guys will make it sound boring, but for me, that is intersection between market and tech. It's also interesting because you learn. You heard a founder story just a few minutes back. I don't see where she is. But nonetheless, you know, you don't have to take that much stress and found your own company. You can also find the right company and buy the shares, spend time with your family, just see your bank balance going up as well. All right, so now I go to Ujjwala from the wonderful organization ARAI. ARAI is also a partner. You see that round thing on top, you see their logo coming once in a while in a loop. ARAI is that organization that actually allows innovations to come to market and to be at the marketplace. Because there has to be a process of testing, certification that has to be done. So tell us, Ujjwala, a little bit about ARAI and, you know, what founders need to know about ARAI, how can they engage with ARAI, and some of the latest things that is happening at ARAI that can help startups in mobility quickly scale. So over to you.
Thanks for the question. I think today is a perfect day to pitch ARAI because today is World Standards Day. So people don't like actually standards. If you are in the domain of startups, people don't like ARAI. Troubles a lot for standards is something people talk about. But what ARAI ensures, as ARAI has told me to talk about ARAI, what ARAI ensures is the trust in every mobility that you are running. Wherever you are going, you are ensuring you are having a safe journey, what you are having. So safety, sustainability are the two things what we ensure by having the regulations and standards around it. And it doesn't mean the regulations by itself, only it ensures the minimum quality gates. We talk about ensuring that minimum quality gates are there when the product is on the road. But beyond that, AR has a bigger role. You said it is running here. So what is that role is about empowerment and enablement. So whatever is new tech that is coming up, how can it be empowered or enabled in different ways to reach to the real part of it in different ways. So here we say that innovation is always not a complete product. Innovation is always a small thing which we have to build the product around, engineer the product around, and come to the market to come to this place. Of course, there are multiple other things. So while doing this, what we really support is kind of a up-leveling or what should be the DOE? See, there are different products which are coming onto the road which are not a global products or which are not the products which are normally available onto the roads. So we have the regulations for people who have the standard products also. But we also have different products which are not there, and we can have the regulations further to ensure that this is regulated to make the innovation go onto the roads. There can be very different products. We are talking about a two-wheeler ambulance. See, something which is very unique for the Indian use cases and which is needed. So there has been ambulance code, how the ambulance should be, what it should be having. And we added something for the two-wheeler ambulance, which is very, very different. You could also see something on a battery safety, which as a regulation come first in the world, and later the global people adopted it. So I will go with the perspective, the challenges that we also have gives us a future mobility case. You know, case is a very famous word. I'm going on Latha's part where people are talking about cases driving the future mobility, where it's connected, automated, shared, and electrified is defined as a case. But what I believe for India is connectivity to address our challenges of traffic jams. A is for affordability and accessibility to the people. We talked about traffic jams, but we also have a data where we talk about only 35% of Indians have access to the motorized mobility. So where it stands for. S is safety. We don't have to talk. There cannot be no objection for the safety. I think safety is paramount for everyone. We have 1.68 lakh deaths on road. So we have to really very serious about safety about it. And third, last is E, which is environment friendly and towards energy independence. Both are most important for the Indian perspective altogether. And all technologies what Latha talked just a while ago, ARAI has been looking into perspective how we can really support these technologies which are going to solve our mobility case by itself through the technologies that we talk. May it be SDV, may it be connected vehicles. We look into connected vehicle perspective, how it can enhance on safety. Can V2P, V2V, V2I help to improve on the safety on the road? This is how we would look into. The ADAS way, we look into how ADAS can enhance on the safety on the road. Again, two-wheeler, like when I say ADAS normally people talk about driver assistance. I look into rider assistance because if you look into that again, the stats, it talks about 80% accidents due to the drivers. Out of 80% accidents, maybe 75% accidents involve two-wheelers. So all these backgrounds, can we have something on ARAS? Can we have rider assistance systems which will help to solve our challenges by itself? So I'll go to, I think, the initial talk what he gave is somewhere, it's a global playground. What we can prove in India is going to work globally. So earlier people used to say that technologies are global and solutions are local. That was the first take. Second take was be vocal for local. The third take I would say the has been looking at it into is act or solve locally and go globally, because what you are solving locally is going to go globally to have the marketplace globally. That's what it is. And ARI is there all the time to support in any of the endeavors that we are talking about in different ways.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. I think it's really important to solve locally, but keep your thought in a global perspective. I just, it's a transversal, let's say, example. 4 years ago when I was in Europe, I saw this robot that's delivering food to different tables, so it comes to your table and delivers food. 3 weeks back, I was again, and I saw another robot, another version of that robot, but this time something interesting. At the back of the robot, there is a screen that indicates if the robot is going straight or will take left or will take right, because somebody is behind and suddenly it takes left, So sometimes having the right standards, having the right safety mechanism can solve a lot of problem, especially if you're moving into the connected ecosystem. And thanks to ARI for the wonderful work they're doing to think ahead and what problem would come, try to create the regulatory framework that can therefore be put in place so that before any disaster and no disaster happens, ideally, therefore that whole ecosystem can scale. All the startups, all the investors that have put in money can actually see their payday and their valuation go up. After these two, let's come to Kasturi. Kasturi is from Shell. Interestingly, for all this you need power, right? There needs to be all the charging points, all the charging infrastructure, which is a very, very complex challenge, because when you look at the charge point operators, not all of them are profitable. They are not utilized fully. Some of them are overutilized, so there are people waiting in queue. And in India, we're a country that loves queues. Once in a while, even the government puts us on some queues. Some of you might have experienced it. But having said that, if we really want to solve and increase, like Jan said, the joy, the pleasure, the experience, then we have to use AI or some other technology to make sure that things are seamless. So now I want to bring Kasturi in and to tell us the whole journey, a little bit about what Shell is doing in e-mobility, and also what it has been over the last, years of how this ecosystem has evolved. So over to you, and let us know also the challenges that you faced along the way.
Thanks, Jos. It's amazing, actually. I go after Latha and Ujjwala, who have built such strong pillars of mobility already. So I just get to do the cover in terms of the wrapper that the consumer sees, and from a charging infrastructure point of view. So I'm Kasturi Gomatam. I head product and design for e-mobility at Shell globally. So very much at the intersection of what our consumers and fleet customers see and what our technologists build. So from that point of view, it's very much in the middle. I have had a journey in my career which has always stayed very close to vehicles. So I started as an engineer, a chemical engineer in research with Daimler, and at the time working on EV trucks and hydrogen fuel cells. So it was truly very much in a research space, and I understood the value of innovation and the stories that we aspire for, right? It was right out of university for me, so it was fascinating to even imagine that a small code that I would write in MATLAB at the time would end up in impacting what comes out of the exhaust pipe, right? Or what it would really make obsolete at that point with hydrogen and EVs. So just to imagine that story was fascinating as a grounding. And that stayed with me. So I chased those stories along the career. I built quite a few new businesses in different companies and startups as well as MNCs. So I was with Flipkart building their supply chain business, serving e-commerce companies outside of Flipkart. I was with Ola, so very early days of Ola Electric. We built three-wheelers before the whole two-wheeler EV wave came. And finally, I joined Shell. Wanting to go wider again with e-mobility. So Ola Electric, of course, took the Indian two-wheeler ecosystem by storm, and very much like Ujjwala said, we were very closely working with the ARAI at the moment. I think it's still a journey in terms of safety, a lot to be done, but very important when it comes to vehicles and fuels and refueling. The whole journey is highly dependent on reliability, which is the thread we took forward in Shell in that sense. So Shell and e-mobility at the moment is completely focused on the charging infrastructure. So across almost 30 countries globally, we provide charging infrastructure. The business in terms of scale, just the pure number of charge points that we have, has already overtaken the number of petrol stations, gas stations that we have globally. So you can see the tide that EV has brought to mobility in that sense. And when it comes to charging infrastructure, there are really two sides of the coin. One is what the consumers see, the users see, which is all about seamless, easy experiences in a lot more complicated, distributed landscape, I would say. So earlier we would go to a specific location, usually our favorite refueling stations. We would get our vehicle refueled there and we move on. And the experience is very short, right? So a few minutes at best is what we usually spend unless we are in a queue. Now it is really disrupted. We are not only competing for the best locations on the go, we are competing with charging at home, right? And majority of our recharging experience, charging experience, is actually happening at homes or at depots or at destinations. A small sliver is happening on the go, and the expectations on that on-the-go charging are very high. So you need to be really on point. It has to work every single time. And the complication behind the charger is a lot higher. So it's not anymore that one dispenser, pull the fuel and put it into the vehicle, into the tank, but 10 softwares in the background that need to communicate, authenticate for the consumer to actually be able to charge. So it's a lot more complicated with an expectation of making it a lot simpler from a consumer point of view. And it integrates with a lot of things too. So it's not just charging. We need to have the best coffee. We need to have the right partner on site. So it's a real choice point whether we go with a McDonald's or a Starbucks as a partner at a particular site. So there's a lot more intelligence analysis that goes behind it. And the other side is operations. So to make all of this happen, there's a lot more on operations that needs to talk to each other. Lot more learning in terms of safety on site, in terms of ensuring different systems work, how maintenance happens, which is a whole world of where technology plays today. And AI is just seeping into it. I think at this scale, there's a lot more to do, lot more for it to actually become commonplace. But those are the two themes I would say that I see going forward. A lot more personalization, a very different refueling experience, and the second one is operational intelligence.
Excellent. I think when you look at these wonderful 3 interventions as a whole, and then if you link it to the keynotes that we had in the morning, especially Jan bringing the point of Bangalore having the digital twin for mobility, imagine you sitting in your car, having a conversation with your AI assistant for mobility. So let me try to make that conversation. Dear car, what do you think? Should I have coffee now in the next 5 minutes and then go to my destination? Or can you check with Astram, which is the digital mobility twin of Bangalore city, and see if it's better I go closer to my destination, have coffee while you charge the car, and then reach the meeting at 10 o'clock. Now imagine this digital twin AI combination will do that whole calculation and then come back to you and say, hey, let's do it this way instead of that. And why would anyone not pay $1 a month to get this service every day? So this is a very interesting question, and that's where you see all these different layers tying up, the tech on one side, the data play on the other side, the regulators and what should never be done versus what could be done, where that line has to be drawn, how hard it has to be drawn, which systems can share data. All of this will be the important elements that will decide how the future is stitched together and how the customer experience is perfected, which basically means if you're in a city like Bangalore, which has all of this sorted out in the next 3, 5, 7 years, and then you go to some other city that doesn't have all this, you'll basically hate that something like this is not there, right? So it can become from a nice to have to a must have, and cities in other countries have to invest or probably ask Bangalore, can we, and then all the others, the consultant company that Latha has started, ARAI for the regulatory frameworks, and also from Shell, what is working, how data has to be shared, which level of data has to be shared, how can it be, the personalization of data can be removed before it's shared. So I think we as a community, as an ecosystem, can build that wonderful, how do I say, synergy for orchestrating experiences and for creating that joy of mobility and then sharing it from India to the world. I hope that is a very interesting case to have. Now that since we have another 8 minutes to close, I will ask each of them, they are going to take a little bit of risk. So you are all lucky who are inside the room. The guys outside, of course, they have coffee, but they lose the chance to pick the brains of these experts here about what their take of the future is. So my question to each of them, which is almost the same, is what is their view of how the future in mobility will look like? So either they can present a picture, or they can say this technology will pick up speed, or this thing will happen, or these two things will happen together. So let's start with maybe from Latha and then go this way. And then I have a very interesting thing from the audience as well. So I'll ask one of you, whoever I see is the most enthusiastic and raise their hand, to also pitch in and say what do you think might be the future of mobility, and after that we'll close. So let's go first with Latha for a view or a window to the future.
But before I answer the question, I wanted to share something on the lighter note. So we were talking about Bangalore traffic and so on, right? So we had the assistant commissioner of traffic of Bangalore visiting Continental when I was there, because he's very keen on technology. So, and we were showcasing some of our solutions. And I asked him, see, I live in Whitefield and I work in Electronic City. For people who are from Bangalore know it's the biggest nightmare that you can have. Minimum 2 hours one way. So I asked him this question. We had a fireside chat. So I asked him, do you think that, I would like to travel between these places in 30 minutes? When do you think, with all the initiative that the traffic police is bringing, that can happen? So he just looked at me and then he told, I have an honest answer, ma'am, please change your home. So I didn't change my home, I changed my office, but anyway. But that's how the technology in Bangalore, that's on a lighter note, yeah. But your $1 million question of what's the future of mobility. See, when we were in 2015, people used to tell that in 2030, all the vehicles on the road will be electrified. Nothing happened, right? It's happening, but not fully happened. Then I think it was around 2017, 2018, inside our company, we used to tell that by 2035, all vehicles will be L4 and L5. That is also not happening. So I think whatever I'm going to predict also will not happen. That's one part. But something which I can tell about is on the technology part. So other than whatever we spoke about, EXE, which is electrified, automated, shared, connected, yearly updated, is here to stay, for sure. In one avatar or the other, all of things will stay. But what's interesting is that other than IoT, AI, data, and others, there's a lot of interesting things which are happening now. One is basically the system on chips. So when we look at the new generation SDVs, we are not talking about hundreds of ECUs, we are talking about domain controllers, zone controllers, and so on. So I think the system on chips, where we have more computing capability, more processing capability in one single chip as a platform, I think that's going to happen. So if you're talking about the Snapdragon or the Thor and other things which NVIDIA and Qualcomm brought in, I think that's one area which will definitely improve. The second topic is quantum computing.
Switch the mic, maybe? Yeah.
Now it's okay, I think. So the quantum computing part, whether it is the quantum sensors, which is talking about gravitometry or magnetometry and other things, that is definitely there. Our sensors will improve, sensing capabilities will improve. And even in the quantum, if you look at it, there's a huge amount of data that is getting churned now, which is terabytes of data if you want to make an L4 and L5 perform, optimize. So that's where quantum computers will come into the system. Quantum will also play a very important role in cybersecurity. We're talking about random algorithm development and QKDs and other things. That is definitely improving. And last but not the least, since the time is limited, there are a lot of technologies. One interesting topic is also the material science. Yeah? So we are all reading about the rare earth material struggle that we have. So I think there's a lot of research which is being done on that. So quantum being used for accelerating the process of research in material science will happen. At the same time, if you look at it, in terms of battery, bringing in more SSD, more materials, all that, and also in terms of sustainability and efficiency of vehicles, lighter materials. So I think material science definitely is an area which is also going to ramp up in the industry. So I would say these three are there, along with the EXE and the AI and the data, which is going to be the future currency. That's going to happen. But after 10 years, if you prove me wrong, I can't help it.
Excellent. No. The idea, when you look forward, it's good to be humble. Nobody knows what's going to come. At the same time, it's good to look forward, because that's the most energy-intensive aspect of a human brain, to think and to connect dots forward. Of course, connecting them backwards, everybody looks wise and it's easy, but connecting them forward is challenging. A few lines from you, and then we close with Kasturi, and then one from the audience here.
I think if Latha is covering everything, I don't have to say many things, definitely. But I feel that when we talk about case, I also would like to talk about zeros now. Zeros is where I believe which is going to drive future. What we are talking about is VUCA, uncertain, technologies horizontally putting in. But the two zeros that I believe is going to drive all the solutions are carbon zero and vision zero. So we what talk about is carbon zero is all about sustainability that we talked about. And vision zero is something where we are talking about zero accident deaths. So these are the two zeros which are going to drive for the future of mobility for India. And to enable that, again, all the technologies you talked about, materials is very, very keen. Particularly materials getting into the development cycle is very important, particularly with respect to the new materials, because the development cycle for materials is very long, and getting it shorter and getting into the development cycle is, we require different methodologies. Something we are working on ICME, we are working on something called high throughput analysis methods, where we can improve on the shorter material development cycles by itself. And data, I think I agree with Latha fully that data is a fuel for tomorrow. And again, as a ARAI, we are working on a huge data generation. What we can call is as Indian database for different applications, which people can use and develop their own solutions to do that. So it works on the enablement part of it again.
Thank you, thank you. I think it's interesting, the 2 zeros. In fact, if we keep our eyes on these 2 zeros, you could add many more zeros to your bank account. I have to point out, in the hall, generally, I'm this guy who is looking for interesting startups and so on. We have Gangadhar there from Nopo. Nopo is doing something very interesting in material science as well, using special tubes. You have to find who he is and meet him. I leave it open. He's there in the room. I can see him. You have to find who he is and what he does. The Nopo company means everybody told him something is not possible, and now they made it possible. And they're a very interesting company from the material aspect. So look and check him out as well. Last year, he was the Impact speaker at Micelio as well. Last words from you, and then we'll close.
Thanks, Jose. That's actually a very ambitious, motivating name. So I'm going to find Nopo next after this session. I think from a consumer experience point of view, what we are heading towards is a lot of blurred lines. So energy, the way we consume it, and the way it gets into our vehicles now, it's going to be super seamless. I see that happening in some markets in the world already. And the more affordable, simpler we get, the background of it, the engine that fuels it, ironically, the more we'll scale it and make it more affordable, right? So how it would translate is the way we power our homes and our vehicles is going to be a lot simpler. So almost imagine one energy bill, irrespective of where you're consuming electrons, whether it is for your home, your vehicles charging at home, on the go, all of that. So a lot of this background in terms of partnerships, in terms of technology, is going to go through a different way of working. So we can't operate in silos anymore. A lot of these industries have to cross over and handshake, which means higher complexity. So a lot more work, I think, commercially for people to do and technologically for people to do in terms of integrations. The second theme I see is how we do operations. And this is, again, a space which will learn from each other across industries, right? Like we do at asset management, in renewables, in power generation, distribution, is going to influence how we do asset management in EV charging. How we do maintenance there is going to influence how we do maintenance here. And there is a lot of cross-learning in terms of looking at the best in each outcome instead of the best within an industry. So we, for example, already look at retail. Hyper-personalization is happening on Netflix and Amazon Prime. It's happening in FMCG already. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel and think, how do I sell a coffee on my EV charging station? That's been solved for. So the best practices are coming from very different spaces. And that's going to redefine how we do consumer experience, hyper-personalization, and also influence how we do best-in-class ops in the background.
Excellent. I think you've got a wonderful perspective. Let's give a big round of applause to the wonderful panelists here.